Basically, this generation is more liberal, more tolerant, more Democrat-leaning than the one before. It's not just because they're young.
For another point of view, it's Hard News with Russell Brown and Wammo on Kiwi.
Yeah, he's the head honcho at publicaddress.net, and also he's on the Media 7 show on TVNZ7. Russell Brown, good morning.
Good morning.
Now let's look at this very odd and weird kind of internet spat going on between Duncan Garner and Brian Edwards on brianedwards.co.nz.
It's brianedwardsmedia.com.
Brian Edwards Media. He
People
couldn't
will be confused otherwise.
Yes, of course. Is there a brianedwards.co.nz one? Who's got
no,
that?
I don't think there is actually, because I think I accidentally typed that once, and there's no such domain. So if anyone wants to impersonate Brian Edwards, the domain name is there.
Like someone may have on his blog impersonated Duncan Garner.
Yeah, it appears that in the course of this fairly lively debate on Edwards' blog, in which Duncan Garner jumped in, someone subsequently purported to be Duncan Garner, and among other things described themselves as the country's leading political commentator.
Yeah.
And they couldn't allow this to go on. I think possibly the sad thing is that, I mean, I wasn't the only one who was fooled by it. The people would think that Duncan Garner would say that, so it's a little bit sad. But
yeah, so
it looks like it definitely wasn't him.
So this all started with an accusation from Brian Edwards to Duncan Garner that he had some kind of vendetta against Chris Carter, and then it became a sort of a he said at a Koru lounge between Duncan Garner and Chris Carter, and what Brian Edwards and his interpretation of the events and how it went down.
Initially, it was Brian Edwards saying in discussions on his site that he clearly Duncan Garner had appeared to have a particular interest in Chris Carter's relationship that he might not have had in a heterosexual relationship, say between an MP and his wife. And I kind of think there's something in that. And then Edwards looked into the confrontation in the Koru Club that Chris Carter's referred to, which is 11 months ago now, where Garner, according to Carter, and possibly according to the sainted Dame Margaret Baisley, who's probably our leading civil servant in recent times, where Garner threatened Chris Carter and said, "I'm going to get you if it takes me till Christmas. I'm going to get you." Garner utterly denies saying that, but even, I have to say, even his account of it, as reported in the Herald, comes across, and this morning comes across a little unprofessional. Garner is understood to have replied, after being provoked, you understand, although it's not quite clear how, "If you want an effing war, you'll get one." And this is on a plane to an MP. It seems kind of, at best, loose, but yeah, the discussion has been fascinating. It's Brian has closed it off now after 108 comments, but I actually think it's quite good when Gordon McBride, who is one of the senior journalists for TV3 in Wellington, jumped in. So it is actually good when people have these arguments out in the open. I don't think, as Mark Jennings claimed to the Herald, that Chris Carter is directing Brian Edwards to do this. I think that's ridiculous and that's insulting. I think Edwards has been having opinions ever since he arrived in New Zealand, and I don't see why he would suddenly start taking direction on those opinions. This was genuinely what he thought, and it was actually quite good to have someone actually try and get to the bottom of this fabled Koru Club confrontation.
But have we got to the bottom of it?
Well, no. You basically got he said. Basically, either Garner made a crack to Carter saying, "Oh, travelling economic taxpayer, Chris," and was told to F off, and then threatened to get Carter on the plane. "I'm going to effing get you, Carter, if it takes me till Christmas. I'm going to effing destroy you." I'm saying effing here, but that wasn't what he said, of course.
Yeah.
And supposedly this was overheard by Dame Margaret Baisley, who is saying nothing now, although presumably she could help with it. Garner's version is that he was provoked, but it still seems kind of unprofessional, frankly.
Well, if it did happen, it brings into a serious question. There's some journalistic ethics there.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he is that kind of. He's a robust journalist. I mean, you know, he's not exactly a policy analyst, but saying if you want an effing wall, you'll get one. And this is what Garner's side says. He said, I think I don't think that's particularly wise, frankly. And I don't think you should get into those kinds of relationships with the people you're reporting on, whether you either are too matey with them or not matey enough. And on the too matey side, you have to remember that Garner was one of the journalists who had the infamous boozy night out with John Key before Key was Prime Minister, and they ended up at the Matterhorn. As Duncan Garner was happy enough to say on Media 7, had to pour Key back into his car, and Key was apparently fairly forthcoming that night with the commentary on what he was about to do. I think it's dangerous just to be in those kinds of relationships, really. Yeah. Whether you hate them or love them, frankly.
Yeah. Any advice for Brian Edwards on his blog about these sorts of things in the future? Because you're a veteran in the space. I mean, you know how kind of the fact that there's trolls out there and people will provoke things.
I thought he handled it pretty well. Apart from the fact that, like many WordPress blogs, it doesn't put up much of a barrier for registration.
Right.
Well, you don't have to register actually. It just remembers your details from last time. And what happened now was because there was no email validation, someone was able to enter a false email address for Duncan Garner. It was duncan.garner at tv3.co.nz, whereas the real one is dgarner at tv3.co.nz. And that was trivially easy. But I think Brian Edwards is hardly the only blog like that. I mean, people do complain that you have to register to post on public address, but you do get around those problems at least.
Yeah, as long as you can sort of protect your identity a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So you can have a screen name, but you need a real email address.
Interesting. Well, certainly a bit of an eye-opener for anyone with a passing interest in what goes on behind the news.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I thought it was a pretty fun discussion, actually. It's probably a new thing for some of those news people who aren't used to being out there in the spotlight.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes I do have to point out to people that something. It's just a discussion forum. There'll be another one tomorrow.
Exactly, another day on the internet. The sun will rise. Thanks very much, Russell.
Righto, see ya.
Cheers. He is the head honcho at publicaddress.net, and you'll also find him on the show Media 7 on TVNZ 7.